And we are officially live. Welcome to another episode of the Uncensored Entrepreneurs. Today we have our special guest, Zach Loescher, and we're going to be talking about how, why, and when to let go of control in your life and business. You see, if you want to scale either of these things in life, letting go is essential. So we'll see you on the inside. And we are back. Welcome to another episode of the Uncensored Entrepreneurs. I'm looking forward to today's topic. But before we dive into the kind of meat and potatoes, if you will, you see we've got two of our regular hosts that are gone today. We have, unfortunately, so throw a little prayer up for Tina. She's not feeling well. I know Starr had some things to tend to. And that's just what happens here, right? We talk about it all the time on the show that we live this life of being an entrepreneur, and there's things that happen. It's all about just recovery and moving forward and pivoting and figuring things out. And so I had a perfect opportunity to bring another person on today. I actually have him lined up on one of my other podcasts, but Zach, we appreciate you joining us today. This is Zach Loescher, also known as the Residual Genius, just across digital platforms. So you can find him on Facebook and a few other channels. But we're going to be talking about some things that really, how this topic applies to not just us, but many others on so many different other levels, right? And so we'll have that opportunity to talk to you a little bit more, Zach. But how's everyone doing today?
Pretty darn good,
Awesome.
man.
What's going on with you, Christina? Oh, I should have said we have 4 on the show today, not just the 3 of us. Zach, I don't know if you've been following along, but Christina is due when?
Yes.
In a month. I'm having a baby in a month, hopefully sooner.
Yeah. So by the way, Christina, Zach was in his previous life before he got into this. He was a first responder. So if something happens here on the show live,
We're good. We're good.
He can talk you through it.
It's shocking to me.
Yeah.
Like, it's shocking to me how many first responders, paramedics, firefighters are like, oh yeah, I've delivered like 50 babies. And I'm like, what are people doing? What is happening? So I know that's a hot topic when you're a first responder. Life is good. Things are good. We're just preparing for baby, kind of. I have a car seat and a bassinet. That's good enough, right? A couple diapers. We're good to go.
That's it.
You can tell it's the second kid, right? When you don't have like everything perfectly situated for that experience. You're just like, what are the basics? We'll be fine. But things are going really good. And, I really do. I'm really looking forward to having this conversation with you guys today about how to let go of control, because as entrepreneurs, are we not all control freaks?
Oh,
like all of us.
Absolutely. And that's why we know when we started to discuss this topic offline, it really is true. As an entrepreneur, well, in the beginning, of course, you're always leaning on other people for wisdom. You're continuously educating yourself. But whatever it is that we develop, because we always talk about that brand development and we talk about our little baby, right? Whatever it is that we've created, and we sometimes covet that so close that we're just like control freaks. It's like, I can't let anyone else into my space. I'm an entrepreneur because I didn't want to work for corporate America, right? And so that already defines the fact that most entrepreneurs do not want to be told what to do. But we know through time and experience that at some point there's a right time to let go, and you have to. It's like essential to be able to scale and to grow both in life and business. So absolutely. So one thing I wanted to kind of just get out there, because we're going to be talking about all kinds of different things. But one thing I just wanted to acknowledge, Zach, and I know that you put it public, so hopefully you're good with me, talking about it.
100%.
I want to congratulate you because I understand, was it today or yesterday, but like you're right at that 60 day milestone. If we could all get a little applause, even those watching the replay later for Zach, 60 days of being sober, correct?
Yep.
Good for you.
That's
amazing.
Congratulations. And obviously we know that sobriety means a lot of different things, right? It's not just one particular thing that comes to mind. It really is kind of the definition of something that takes over control in your life, right? And in many ways, many of us have had different things that actually do that. So, I'll probably be revealing a couple of those things along the way as well. So I just wanted to give you some kudos right off the gate.
I'm like, dude, I'm 8 months into being sober. Okay.
and congratulations to Christina for being.
I'm kidding. I'm not taking away from that, Zach. I think that is, it takes a lot of discipline, right? It takes a lot of discipline to decide to do that.
Yes.
Right.
Yep. It's a whole different mindset. And it's like Rob, you said, the alcohol was the control, and now it's switching that and the mindset on it, and having the positive circles and the support there is huge.
Yeah.
That's
absolutely.
Awesome. That is absolutely awesome.
You.
So I think, like we're gonna be diving in a little bit more into that, right? And we'll be asking you some questions, and you can provide some input for the listeners out there. But one of the things, it kind of walks us in perfectly. Oh, by the way, Christina, I didn't want to dismiss the fact Kelly reminds me of the same thing all the time. Anytime that she's had to, anytime she was in her maternity, phases, she was like, hey, you know what? You're telling me that you can't go without a beer or a glass of wine today. And she's like, look at me, so don't, she's like, don't even go there. But
hey, I'm not saying I haven't traded that for like a food intake. I'm like, now I just eat my calories. Okay?
Yeah, that's right. Some other habit, right? But anyways, so, but it's a perfect segue for us to kind of walk into this about control in your life and business. And obviously it's important to still be able to be the visionary and the person that sets up like where it is that you're going in life. That's important. You can't give away everything and have somebody steer you in something that isn't even guided towards your own goals and morals and objectives. But really, when we talk about your life and letting go of control, in most cases, there's two things that come to mind as an entrepreneur. And what I wanted to talk about is stress. That's a big thing, right? Because as an entrepreneur, you're stacking on all of these different hats that you're wearing, and all the different things that you have to work through and learn, and it becomes very stressful, right? Because you also feel like you're sometimes this solopreneur, just a person on an island by yourself. And that, by the way, Zach, I just wanted to mention that sometimes is what leads us to these habitual things that take other control of our life. I mean, I don't know if that's your situation, but I know that for myself, it's a release, right? It's like, oh, I'm so overwhelmed that I do some of these other things. I build these other habits in my life to just step almost outside of the situation that I'm currently in.
Yeah. Drugs, alcohol, sex, people use all different things to deter their stress and try and dive into something that is going to give them some relief, right? As opposed to doing what work needs to be done up here. Sorry, Zach, go ahead.
No, she said, she mentioned that. Yeah. But talk about mindset, Zach.
Yeah, well, it's, and the mindset, obviously being sober now, it's much clearer and a better vision and everything, but like the whole, like you said, going back down to the first responder days, that's where the whole alcohol came from, because you get off the 24-hour shift and, you ran XYZ call and it sucked. So what do you do at 6 or 7 in the morning? The bars that have the 2-for-1s happy hour at 6 in the morning. So the crew and everybody goes till you relieve the stress from that call or those calls or the shift. And back then, now it's, now there's, well, even talking to my therapist this morning, back then, there was a, tough crap, figure it out yourself. Now it's actually, now the departments and things actually have, or they have to have plans in place. And like we were talking today, like they have critical stress incident that they take you out of service right away after it, kind of thing. Where back then it didn't. So you figured it out at 6 or 7 or 8 in the morning when you got off shift. They get rid of we were just talking about, and the same thing with the entrepreneur. Like, whether you have a bad month or bad, who knows, bad Zoom or anything like that.
Yeah.
You go do whatever. Like,
Yeah.
but there's so many things. Whether it's drug, it could be any type of drug, or it could be the alcohol, or I'm gonna go eat a whole gallon of ice cream, or so there's so many. Everybody has a different.
I feel that was personal.
I got in trouble last night. I think it was that we're having too much ice cream.
Yeah.
But we all find something to like take the edge off, right? We all figure out something to take the edge off, the stress off, because it becomes to be too much sometimes.
Mm-hmm. True. Yeah. That is so true. And so obviously stress is a big factor. I know that fear is another big factor.
Yeah.
And so those are kind of two things that I've branched off on, when I think of like this topic as a whole. And then many times, the fear, let's talk about that fear in business. Like, think of a time when you didn't want to let control of your business or something that you were doing, your goals in life, because of just fear in itself. You guys have any ideas?
That's when people burn out, right? Like that's when they get to the point of like absolute burnout, and like their brain breaks down and they're forced to have a break because they can't function at a normal pace anymore. And so fear usually comes in entrepreneurship when you believe that no one else can do it better than you. So you've got to do everything, right? And the truth is, there are a lot of people out there that can do things better than you and things that you probably don't even want to do, things that you're not interested in. And if you can learn to swap your mindset and hire people to do the things that you don't want to do, that stress you out, that take you 10 times longer than it should, because it's not your wheelhouse. And so you hire those things out, and then you work in the place that brings you joy, everything shifts. But it's just letting go of that little piece before we can move forward, because we think that everything's going to fall apart if we take our finger off it, but it's not the truth. And the other piece of that is we're scared to make a mistake. We're scared that something's going to make a mistake. It's going to take us off of our game, or it's going to damage our reputation or our brand or our business or whatever it is. And the truth is, as human beings, 25% at least of what we do is a mistake, right? And in entrepreneurship, 25%, you're making mistakes on those decisions. And so if you can learn faster from your mistakes and not take the time to beat yourself up every time you lose money, like there are people out there, I make this reference, okay, I've made $10,000, $20,000 mistakes before. There are people out there that have made $1 million mistakes or $10 million mistakes, right? Absolutely. So like if you're sitting in this place of like, I can't move forward because I'm scared and I have this fear of making a mistake, just understand that is part of the process. That's part of getting what you want, is working through all of the mistakes that you do make, because it's going to happen.
Wow. So true. So true. What do you think about that, Zach? Just in regards to
Christina nailed it. It could be, a $10,000 million mistake. Like if you think back to Shark Tank with the Ring, when he came on the show with Ring, they all told him no, it's never going to work, and now it's $1 billion company owned by Amazon. So there's always that.
Right. The mistake can be on either side, right? The person actually venturing into the business and the one that decides to let an opportunity pass. And that's absolutely true.
Yeah, but it's it's fear that that you don't you don't want to talk to this person because oh my gosh, they've made 10, 20, 30,000 in a month, and you're only here, even though you might know it is going to help them in their business, but it's that fear of, I don't know if I can talk to them. So there's many ways that fear is going to come in and play a factor, especially in the entrepreneur world. Versus if I was just in my 9 to 5 where I'm told to do this, and it's done.
That is so true. I'm actually glad you just brought that up, because there's a topic that I never really even thought about in regards to this, and that is, and it's still an element of fear of letting go. When you start to open up your world to others, when you ask for help, we'll talk a lot about coaches, people that you're working with, right? Your therapist that you just talked about, Zach, as well. When you start to open your world to others, or you're collaborating with others, there's a major element of transparency, and with transparency comes vulnerability. Like all of a sudden you're an open book, and people are starting to also, not just the control of running your business, Christina, like you said earlier, but you actually become vulnerable, and they see the weak places, gaps in your business, right? And they're going like, that takes courage. That takes some major courage. And so you kind of nailed it there, Zach, when you talked about just being able to kind of trust that process. When other people come in, being able to make that decision that, you know what, I can't do all of this on my own, both for life and business.
Yeah.
And by letting go of control, a couple things happen. We know that's when you start scaling. We know that's when there's an opportunity for breakthrough. But sometimes before you experience either one of those things, it tears you down, right? You start to realize you have imposter syndrome. We talk about that a lot. You start realizing, man, I'm not this person that I thought I was. I'm not the guru that I've portrayed myself to be all this time. And that's okay, because if you're willing to take on like that challenge, then I believe that through that transformation, through that journey, you'll attract so many more people that you're intended to serve. So.
Yeah, and show your vulnerability through it, right? Like for a long time, and it depends on how you're raised and your expectations and all that kind of stuff. For a long time, I put people that I came from a blue collar family, right? I learned to make money to pay my bills. That's what I thought work was for, right? Mm-hmm. I've evolved into making an impact and helping other people, but I always put people that made more money than me on a pedestal. And I thought they were better than me. Like they must be better than me if they could make $1 million a year or $10 million a year. They must be better than me somehow. And as life goes on, you realize they're just human too. They have their own flaws. They have their own quirks. They have all of these things. You're in the same playing field. They've just decided to believe in themselves and put action behind it. And I actually have a ton of respect for people that are capable of telling the truth and being vulnerable. And you brought up your counselor. I'm a huge fan of counseling. I'm a huge advocate of it. I have mine on speed dial because I think that we need a team of people. And that's part of my team when I'm building big business. And I remember going to my counselor and not realizing that in the environment that I was raised, that I held my work ethic as a badge of honor, that it was the thing that defined me. And I actually hard work. I was like, I can outwork anybody. I will stay up until 2 a.m. and sacrifice my whole health just to, show that I'm committed. Right. And it was the wrong weight in my business. And so I remember saying to my counselor, I said, this is something that I need to work through because I'm sacrificing my health. I'm sacrificing time with my family just to create this success, create this business. And I was like, I need to understand how to let go of that and really embrace, because parenting is a huge accomplishment for me. Raising global citizens and kind, thoughtful children, like that to me is as important as doing business. And I remember that my counselor said to me when I was talking to her about like not overworking and not working too much, she was point blank honest with me. And she said, Christina, I would love to be able to help you with this and I'll do my best, but I have to be really honest with you. This is something that I suffer with too. I also work really hard. I also sacrifice everything for my clients. And it's because I love what I do and it doesn't feel like work. But she's like, there needs to be boundaries and you have to learn how to do that, or you will constantly be sacrificing the thing that you truly want for the thing that you think that you want. I was like, oh, that one hit me pretty good.
It does. I think it hit all of us here and anyone that listens now or later. It's so true. I'm glad that actually you brought up when you kind of segued through a lot of things there, but when you talked about and your family life and your children, that's an interesting aspect that I never even really thought about. That's a very good example and a first step of letting go, where we're in control. We're the parent, right? Like we are the catch-all. It's my way or no one's way when we're raising a child, right?
Yeah.
But you have to let go to let these outside like forces and influences kind of develop their life and letting them, exposing them to schools or to teachers or coaches or whatever it is that, other people that become their kind of mentor or guide in life. That's a hard thing to do, right? Because, as a parent, you're like, no, I am the one that will mold you and tell you what to do. But it takes a lot of courage to do that. But we find that's an early step that if we, now governing is one thing, like watching, making sure that they have the right influences is another thing. Being involved in their life is a huge thing, but letting these outside influences mold their life to become like the people they're intended to be. That's so crucial. And it carries on for the rest of our lives, right?
Yeah. And I think in business too, right? Like I read one book. I read 3 dog books before I got a dog. And then I read one book before I had a kid. And it was The Conscious Parent. And it was talking about like how, I don't know how you guys were raised, but there were very high expectations and kids live up to their expectations. So what their parents' expectations are, whether it's in sports, academics, whatever it's in the arts, the kids are going to live up to that expectation. Right. And what I realized in the process is like, even in my upbringing, I love you, Mom, but like you guys wanted to have the best. She's watching right now, by the way. And so, they have these expectations because they want us to be successful. They want us to have careers that we take care of ourselves and be happy. And that's their ideal process. But really, to be a support for your children, you have to honor who they are in the process and give them everything that they need. Now, it comes down to values and beliefs and really having those core, structure in your kid's life so that as they go on and they grow up, they make good decisions for themselves and they're in alignment with who they are and what they want. But sometimes that could be really difficult, right? Like my daughter loves playing Barbies. I think it's a waste of time. I hate playing Barbies. Okay. And my husband's way better at playing Barbies with her than I am. I'm just like, I just can't do this. I've got too much to do. And I know, and it sounds so crazy, right? But I have to let go of that control of like, this is what she really just wants. She doesn't necessarily want to play Barbies with me. She wants to be present with me. And I think about that in business, right? Often we'll go into business coaching. We'll be like, you need to do this, you need to do that, without taking a step back and thinking, what's best for my client? What's best for what their dreams and desires are? Because they're not my dreams and desires. Maybe they don't want to make $1 million. Maybe they want to make $100,000 or even $60,000 in a new business. How can I support them where they're at and with where their belief system at and really come into who they are? They might not want to work like me. And not everybody does. Trust me, not everybody wants to work this way. And they think you're crazy when you do. Right. And I understand that. But creating an environment where everybody feels good. I mean, that's what we learn in network marketing too, right? 80% of people are in for community and culture and $500 to pay for their products and use great products. Whereas there's only a very small percentage of people that are willing to work their way to the top. Right.
Wow. That is so true. Zach, you got some input in regards to just that in itself. I mean,
on the kiddo thing and letting them do what they want to do is like with Dustin, he was like, I played college soccer, I played in Europe. His mom played college basketball and everything. That's how we met. So coming from, 2 people that played sports at college and past, when Dustin got in, he didn't want to do soccer. He didn't want to do basketball. We're like, well, so, let him on his own. And it just happened that she was a bartender and the family kept coming in. And finally she asked and they're like, well, just bring him. So he played hockey. But then, at that time he was super good. They won the national championship at like 14 years old. But when he got 17 or 18, he was going to the tryouts for AAA and all that, but he got a shoulder injury, and that's when he made the decision that he's like, well, I'm having surgery now, I'm done, because he didn't want to have another injury again like that. So, and that's what you're saying, Kristen. You got to let them do their own path, and even though you want them, hell yeah, I wanted them to go to the NHL, or who wouldn't, right? But when he made the decision, he made it on his own, and we stepped back and let him do it, awesome. And now he's looking at, now he wants to go into fire. He's looking at, going to go into the fire academy. But then he also is now talking, well, if you only work 24-hour shifts, 11 days a year or a month. Well, now I want to do gunsmithing. I'm like, okay, but so let them, just let them do what they want to do, instead of
and support them in that process, right?
It is. It is. And, it's sometimes it's letting just a little bit in at different times. Like we said, of course, you want to give some input. You want to give some guidance based on experience and wisdom that, some of your own failures in life. And I think about that in the world of coaching as well, kind of overlapping that, the personal life and in the world of our coaching business. The fact that I may have somewhat of a structured plan. I would say that, I have about as I always say, I've got 60% structured and 40% that just develops with each client. Because as you said earlier, Christina, they're not all going to be at the same, down the same path that you are. And so I love that because, through developing, I talk a lot about our personal brand, developing who you are, what your passions and your purpose are, and even to get there, to experience a breakthrough, you absolutely have to fail. right? Like each and every one of us can contribute our success. Zach, you making this decision 60 days ago, you had to reach that level in life where you just kind of, you reach the bottom where you were like, this is it. Like enough at some point, like enough is enough. And that becomes your catalyst to start moving forward in a different direction. And so
Absolutely.
so even in like the coaching space, I may have someone, guide someone down a certain path based on just some structure and fundamentals. But most of that is all like, okay, so what do you want to do? Like how is it you want to do this? And how does this serve you? And really identifying, and we can kind of segue into that, when is a good time to outsource or to collaborate in both life and business, meaning that to let go of control, there comes a point where I think you said earlier, Christina, burnout. If you do it all yourself, you're going to burn out. You're going to crash and burn. And so you have to start to realize that I have to let some of my life, some of my business, I have to let go and let others, kind of guide me through that process. And that means whether it's your spouse, whether it's friends, family, or collaborative partners like we have, and even our own clients. So that's a little interesting thing I'll just throw out there is I always believe that the coaching process, I'm learning just as much from each and every client as they're learning from me. And so it's definitely a kind of a two-way street there. But what are your thoughts around just collaboration and outsourcing? When is a good time to do that? Or do you have examples?
I think you can kind of do it at any time, really. There's not a specific time. It's, in one business, like, Christina might have a better angle at a certain aspect of a business than I would. And it's also comes down to that delegation where you got to feel comfortable letting go of certain things. Where I use freelancer a lot. It's decent priced, and usually it's and you get to choose, the outcome of it. But let them do. I could spend 3, 4, 5 hours on a logo, and it's going to suck. Where I give it to them for a decent price, and in 3 days I have, I think the last one I had was 400 different options to pick from, which becomes overwhelming then. But it's but it's a super way to, I can't do it. I'm not that. I can have great ideas in my head, but I cannot draw. I cannot come out with it, but I can type it up and tell them what I want to do. So it's the delegation part of it, and letting go of the things that you aren't great at, and having somebody else do it. So,
and are they income producing, activities? That's another thing you have to look at. You can sit there and you can, educating yourself is important. Having your hands in your business is very important. I mean, I go way back into traditional business before there was social media or any of these things that we do in digital marketing. And when I think back to those days, I always wanted to learn. I immersed myself to learn every little aspect of my business, right? However, I also realized that I couldn't scale until I let go of some of those things like you're saying, Zach, right? You can be the visionary behind it. You can say to somebody, I want X, Y, Z, and I kind of thinking of this on my logo, and then just let them run with it. And as you said, you come back with 400 different ideas, more than you wanted. And then now you can kind of see what resonates with you and maybe your audience. So there's ways to leverage that. But you're right. There's a time to do that so that you can focus on the things that are going to scale your business and actually ultimately increase. And when I say increase, that can be money in the bank. It can be more opportunities with clients. It can be a bigger audience, whatever that may be. Is like those are the things that are going to scale your business. I know you know all about that, Christina, as well.
I do. I got to say about that.
You've gone through a lot of that over the last couple of years, right?
Yeah, I have. And you know what I learned? Most people decide to hire out when they're in the weeds. They're in the weeds, they're overwhelmed, they're burnt out, and they're like, I have to hire somebody. And what I've learned in the process is if you want to grow your business, most entrepreneurs do it backwards and hire help when they're already in trouble, as opposed to building the foundation and training the right people to create something that will be able to establish a bigger growth, right? So instead of waiting until you have to, you start to do it as you can afford to, right? And you start to have a long-term vision of like, hey, how do I want to build this out? Because a lot of times people will go viral or they'll have something massively impact their business. And if they don't have the systems in place to capitalize on it, it's a waste of time and energy, right? They lose out on the sales. They lose out on the press or the international press. They lose out on all of those things if they don't have a team that can help them capture those leads and help nurture those people. And the other thing that I wanted to bring up too is that a lot of the time, we have this fear in business. And we try and see all angles. And this is why we try and control our business, is because we don't want something to get us that we just don't see coming. But often in business, it is the thing that we don't see coming, right? Like we work for a company and the company goes out of business, or we get laid off. Something happens and Zoom crashes in the middle of your workshop, right? There's like different things that'll happen. And those are the things that you have to learn, that you can't see it all. You will never be able to predict the future. You're not going to be able to see what happens in government. You're not going to be able to see what happens globally. All of those things are things that are at play. So what can you control? And if those things happen to you out of left field, like they totally will, how do you pivot faster? How do you get there faster? And I used to beat myself up. Like, I'm going to be real transparent here. I used to beat myself up for all the mistakes that I made. I would sit in them for like weeks, if not months. It would hold me back from making decisions. And most entrepreneurs will make decisions based on their past experience and where they are right now in business, not based on where they're going in the future, not based on who they want to become or what they're creating in the future. And I went on this mastermind on a Disney cruise. It was a lot of fun. And I remember like still going through the process of like, am I worthy of being here? Am I enough? That's the fear that it is, right? Imposter syndrome is just simply, am I enough? And there was a couple things that happened. One, I learned a sentence there that changed everything. And it was, now that I know better, I'll do better. And now whenever I make a mistake, I'm like, now that I know better, I'll do better. Like, I'm not going to do that again, right? Yeah. But the other thing, and I'm going to bring this into the conversation because I think it's important, is that these women, I had gone through this like massive transformation in my life. And I've talked about it before on the show before, like when it comes to religion and my upbringing Catholic, and then went into this whole spirituality thing because I was so church hurt and hurt by people that I was like, this God stuff is for the birds, right? Like, this is crazy. I'm going to go down the spiritual path, not realizing what I was trading for that, not realizing that in this spiritual path, it's all ego. And it's like, I'm in control and I can change the world and I can do all this. Whereas like when you give it to God and let go and have this unshakable faith, there was this unshakable faith that I didn't have because I was in control and I was spiritual and I was all like you've made yourself the God in that process. That it was a big like, ooh.
But it's so true. Like when you are God, how can you let go of anything?
You can't. And that's the thing. And so I noticed that I was in this space that was completely different to these women that were dedicated to God and that had this unshakable faith in business that he would take care of them, that everything would work out. And they continued to work that time in, like day in, day out, with any hiccup, with any challenge. God's got this. No big deal. I'm just going to keep moving through it. And I'm like, I didn't have that unshakable faith for so long until I recognized the power of it, until I recognized that letting go. And isn't that religion, right? Your relationship with God is letting go of control of your life and everything and just saying, it's in your hands. I trust you. I trust that you are going to do what's best for me, for the greatest good of the world, for the greatest good of my family. And when you actually have that connection, everything changes too.
Surrender.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you probably know a couple things about that, don't you, Zach? I mean,
100% there. Yeah, no, and it's like Christina's kind of the same thing. Like, while I was on the ambulance and stuff, there was always a higher power that we got off the truck every day or every night or every morning whenever you're shift ended. And once I got out of the industry, it's kind of like, okay, and then I kind of went away, and then obviously November 27 when I went into rehab, and then from there it was basically boot camp. I had never like 5:30 in the morning with a wake up. Literally knocking on your door would get out of bed kind of thing, in bed at this time. But then, every day you were doing the Lord's Prayer and the Serenity Prayer and all that. And it's like, literally like Christina said, it's almost as easier. It actually is easier. Just people are like, how do you do it? I'm like, obviously one, not losing the relationship I have, but, is a huge piece, but also it's just, he's guiding the way and let him do it. And, with Lions football, for example, if I was in Denver and it was Avalanche or whoever winning, I'm sitting there drinking beers and, next morning you get a headache. Now it's like, oh, we won. Cool. I'm still celebrating, having fun with the game.
Absolutely.
But it's a different aspect of it. And, now it's, it's not even that craving for it. It's just like, okay, whatever. I'll have, now my prime addiction, whether it's prime addiction.
You know what? That's interesting. I'm glad that you're talking about that, Zach, because right, this is a whole other element that we're talking about. When you let go, well, actually, with what both of you said, I'm kind of just squeezing that together in the fact that when you surrender and you let that go to a higher power or a higher purpose, whatever that may be, it starts to make you realize when it isn't just about self, it's the people you're impacting around you. It's having that freedom to do other things in life and to experience more. Then you actually realize that the mindset, there is a shift there, right? Like you thought before that every good time had to have an element of alcohol, drugs for some people or whatever that may be. Everyone plugs, just plug and play there. When the reality is just releasing some of these burdens from our life is a huge, like I get pumped up, just like you said, just based on life itself, being able to know that somebody else that's connected to me, whether it's in business or life, is winning or is excited. Like even just your testimony, that gets me super pumped up, right? Because that's the way it should be. I talk a lot about mindset, heart set, and soul set alignment, like having those three things in perfect alignment. And by doing that, it frees you. There's this freeing experience. And by the way, go Lions. So I'm with you. That's my team. Super pumped up about that one. But anyways, so no, I agree. And I'm so, again, I'm very grateful for the experience that you're going through, Zach.
Thank you.
I think we can learn in all aspects of our life. And I hate to break this to you, Robert, but one of the news stations in Canada broke it and put out that it's going to be the Ravens and San Francisco.
You know what? The world has been saying that.
That's because the NFL logo colors. Yeah. The NFL logo colors match those two teams.
They also said that the Lions were gonna be out of the playoffs.
All right, I'll hold out hope for you.
Let's go, underdogs. Let's go.
Well, Rob, in Denver when I was there, every team except the Rockies have won a championship. So I might as well just bring it out here.
You might as well. And so, now, Zach, that's an interesting element. If you don't mind expanding a little bit about that, right? There was some. I heard you sneak it in there, right? That for somebody else, right? Like, the way you were affecting somebody else. And so you can talk a little bit about that outside, the outside element, those that you affect, people that you love, how you see that you're impacting them. And I know that you've moved, right? So you've been on this traveling thing. You were way out in Colorado, right? And then now you're here I say here because that's my old hometown. You're in Michigan, right? Yep. You're in Michigan. And so I really think that in itself is a very powerful thing to talk about. And I'm going to set kind of the stages, and then I'd like to hear your story. I've always said, and I talk to clients that talk a lot about just getting out of a rut, and they can't get out of bed. This analogy, this mindset shift, where many times when we are in a burning building, we don't have the courage, we don't have the energy, we don't have the motivation to get up and get out of the burning building. However, if you can envision the person that you love most, maybe it's your child, maybe it's your parent, maybe it's your sibling, somebody that you love more than anything in this world, you imagine them in that burning building, and now you're on the outside looking in. Most of us will jump the fence and run into that burning building to help save that person. And so it is a mindset shift. And so I would like to hear a little bit more, if you don't mind, if you don't mind being a little vulnerable about what are some of the elements that made you make a shift of, hey, I've got to surrender. I've got to let go of this.
That was either, do it or lose it. It comes down to, that should be a new shirt there. Do it or lose it. There we go.
All right, we're gonna write that down. Let's trademark it. Okay. Yeah,
let's get that trademark there, like Prime does with everything in Colorado.
Yeah, exactly.
But
talk about this journey.
Yeah, no, it's I've been in Colorado, been in Denver since '96, so almost 30 years, 27 or whatever it was. And so you literally do get in that rut. Like my circle was, my EMS friends, the certain few people that I'd met, whether it was drinking or going to Buffalo Wild Wings or whatnot. And so that was my clique, and then a few that I'd met, just randomly or whatever. But then obviously with business, everybody else was online. So, to meet anybody or go out with anybody in Colorado, it was always going out to the bar or whatever. Hey, let's go watch the Avalanche. Let's go watch the Nuggets or, whatever. So it got into that, and you got into that rut. And then, just coming back and forth, like kind of like you said, jumping back and forth here, knock on wood for Frontier for $39 flights for a while. And it was coming out there and building that, and then you just kept going. But it wasn't. You don't see it as yourself, because that's your normal daily life that you're living. And it's get off this at Zoom and go have a beer, or, oh, my software's running, I can go have lunch and a burger and a beer. And you do it that way. And that's just the mindset or the path you're on and the rut you're in. But you don't see it until, you literally are. And, the whole story, Rob. But, it was November 25th, 4th, actually. Yeah. Was my last drink that Friday night. And then it took, the cop coming on Saturday to the door to make sure I was okay, because I was done with social media. I didn't want to answer anybody, no one talked to anybody. And then, Sunday it was, well, am I going to do it? I'm going to do it. And making phone calls Saturday. And it was interesting because I've been on the other side of the system now, trying to use the system. It was interesting actually how hard it was to use it, because I literally because my phone number is obviously a Colorado area code. So I kept getting tossed to Colorado call centers, and they couldn't do anything. So they say, call this number. And it's like a fax machine. I do it again. And now it's just a voicemail. So it was interesting to see that side of it. And I know for a lot of people, it would be like, well, screw it, I'm just going to go drink now because I tried. And so
right.
I sat there for a while, Saturday going, I don't know what the hell to do. Then at the same time, in November, like I literally was having the best month in business with the most signups I've gotten in 10 plus 15 years, whatever it's been, with and number one on the leaderboard for the company, even though I'd only done 3 weeks of the month. But then it was that Sunday, it was, screw it, I'm just going to get the Uber and let's go, because the cop gave me a card to Common Grounds. And I was like, I don't know. And so I got a hold of somebody there, and of course they're like, oh yeah, just put it, bring a pair of shorts and a t-shirt in case they keep you overnight because it's Sunday. Well, when you show up there and they take you, you do your little check-in, you go in the back, all of a sudden it's, no, you're staying, you're here for at least 2 weeks. I'm like,
yeah.
That's not what they told me. They told me that I could come here.
That's not a bait and switch. I don't know what is.
Yeah, it was totally like, I'm sitting there going, well, I would have brought more. Something like I had a pair of flip-flops and a pair of gym shorts and another t-shirt, and I think like a zip shirt or something. But
yeah.
I'm like, and he's like, well, let's not do this if you don't want to stay. I'm like, well, if I leave, I'm not coming back. So let's do it. But it was hitting that rock bottom like you mentioned earlier. And either I'm going to do it and knock on wood, hopefully keep the relationship and improve it and make it better, or just throw it all away and be in the same shitty life, excuse the English there, that I had figured out I was in. But so, and it's, and then obviously getting into, I call it boot camp. But it was perfect. I mean, you started the second you got there. I didn't get there until it was the afternoon session, but they didn't care what time you showed up. You just moved into that whatever the next thing coming up was, and you were in there, and I was there 3 weeks. But it's also the great mindset that, like I was saying, you're doing prayer mornings and nights, and it's all structured, and you have that routine and everything. So, and you can work out in the gym and things, but it was the mindset and the switch, and seeing that, you are basically helpless in it, and having to take that out of your life, whether it be the alcohol or the drugs, or there was actually 2 or 3 people in for gambling even, so it was, getting rid of that, and, then getting rid of that circle. There's, a handful of people that, I'll keep in the circle, but a lot of them, with the transparency of once I got out and, what was going on, some of them just left, which was totally fine with me because I really don't care if you left. Cool. You made it easy. And then there's other ones that, have talked and said, oh crap, I didn't know. And there's some that, oh, I knew, but you didn't listen. I'm like, well, you didn't say anything really then. Should have been a little more forceful at it. There was some on Facebook here, and then actually even in my software business that have been in AA or are, sober. Like I have a buddy that's 7 years sober. I had no clue. He don't talk about it anymore. So,
so many of us don't talk about the struggles, and I mean that's the purpose of this show and the work that we do is being vulnerable, talking about the dark side of this journey of becoming, not just an entrepreneur, right? We talk about, your life it runs in parallel, right? And so.
And you could be a super high functioning human being and still be going through the dark, through the dark side of this world where you're trying to manage both. And like Zach, you said you had the best month in November ever, right? And you're still going through all these habits. And really what leadership in business is about, is working through those things that are holding you back and helping other people work through them too. And, I think we all wish we had a friend that would have stepped up and said something sooner. And it's really interesting. So my husband, because I have not been drinking and I like the smell of alcohol right now is not okay. And so he just stopped drinking in September and has been supporting me in that way. And he's noticed things in his life. He's like, I thought that I drank to go to events so that I would be more personable, so that I'd be more outgoing. But all it did was give me social anxiety. Like, it just made me feel terrible for the next couple of days. And now I've got this clear focus and I'm accomplishing so much more. And I'm so much more driven because I don't have this like feeling of regret or feeling of like not being happy in the following days. And sometimes you need that break or that pause to recognize, wow, life can really be beautiful on the other side of this if I'm not just constantly looking for a coping mechanism,
That is so true. And the dependency side, right? Whenever you do sober up and you're in that moment of pain or loss in your life, whatever it may be, then as you just said, Christina, like you realize, oh, this is not the life I want. So you have two choices. You can numb that pain again, or you can reach out and get help to help pull you out of that. And so, yeah, and you obviously see a few people are popping in here. You can't see everything on the different social streams, but people are proud of you, Zach. So that's, you have control of a lot of things, right? Put whatever label you want out. You had to let go of ego. That's a big label, right? Because like, hey man, I feel that way a lot in life with my own decisions of letting go of control. It's like, I'm a man, right? And I'm filled with testosterone, and I'm like, no, that's my ego is big. You can't tell me to stop doing something. So you have to be very, very vulnerable to do that, and to trust a higher power, the process. And I know this, you said quite a few times you were going to lose a relationship, and so it's like, those are the things that I talked about, the burning building, right? It wasn't, you didn't really care if you were burning. It wasn't until you realized that everyone around you were going to lose everyone if you didn't make a conscious decision.
Oh, it's absolutely facts there.
Yeah.
And you're not going to do it until you want to do it. Like I said, people told me, or in a roundabout way might have told me, but I wasn't also ready yet. And, you have to be ready to do it. And, that's until you're ready and absolutely ready. And, her having me take the Uber was the, I'm not, if you're not going to get there, then tough crap and take the Uber. So,
interesting. Yeah. That is an interesting thing. I think that goes back to, again, a conscious mechanism, something that you had to make a decision for, right? Like everyone in your life could have kept telling you, they could have drove you right to the front steps of the rehab and said, go check yourself in. And it wasn't until you finally realized what was at risk. And it may have been life itself, right?
It was definitely that too.
911, right? And so it was that fear of realizing all that could be lost. And by the way, you're going to be a better person because of that. And I want to circle, back around into the fact that's what this topic is all about. By surrendering, letting go, you will scale your life. We're talking a lot about life here. So for those that think it's just a business show, but you're also going to scale your business by letting go of control. You won't experience that fatigue, the burnout as much. You'll still have some of it, but as much. And you'll start to see kind of a new side. Quite honestly, I talk about that in the world of personal branding. You'll start to develop and identify who you actually are. Many of us we have an identity crisis. We have absolutely no idea who we are. And that's another reason why it's hard to let go of control, right? Is because we absolutely are disconnected from our purpose in life. And Christina, talk about letting go of control. I want people to hear just that story one more time, that you had to make a big conscious decision to leave Canada, skip over the United States, which I'm a little hurt, that you didn't want to stay here for a little bit. But anyways, you skipped over us, but you went south and like, explain that. You had to let go of some control in life, and by doing that, I mean, people think, oh well, she took control, but you had to let go of some things to make that happen. Again, it was a mindset shift, it was a heart set shift, And it hasn't been an easy run, has it? I mean,
Yeah.
You're doing something better for your family, and how many haters have you developed over the course of the last?
I would say millions, but that might be an over exaggeration. It's one of those things that you don't talk, like, everyone looks at life and you get the highlight reel on social media, right? Like, oh, how cool for you. You get to live in Mexico. Do you know that we grieved the loss of the people around us? We grieved that move. We grieved, what used to be in Canada and what it's not now. Tucker Carlson's up there just making mayhem, which is pretty hilarious. But it's so interesting, and we had to surrender to be able to take control, if that makes sense. We had to surrender to what was going on. We had to accept it. We had to understand it. We had to grieve it, and then we could make decisions for our future, right? Instead of sitting there in this victimhood of like, I can't believe this is happening. We don't agree with this. We're not in alignment. Our values are not in alignment, right? And sitting and being triggered all the time, which, by the way, we did drink a lot more back then. We did spend a lot more time doing the things that were unhealthy just to try and take that pain away. But once we actually accepted it, right, we decided that we were going to do something different. And it kind of was out of our control. None of those things we can change. We can't change government policy. We can't change any of these things that are happening in the world right now. We can only take control of the things that we can control, just like Zach, right? He's like, I can finally take control of this, and I'm going to do it for me. I'm not going to do it for anybody else. And so often we get put in these positions because we want to please everybody. We want everybody to be happy. We want, we don't want anybody to be disappointed in us. We don't want anybody to judge us. And so we continue to go down this line that isn't necessarily in alignment. And when we did let go of it all, there was this relief. And then there was a whole new world, a whole new chapter that opened up to us that allowed us different opportunities, that brought some amazing blessings and things in our life that we never could have dreamed for, because we had the courage to let go of something that was comfortable, something that we had been raised in, something that we believed in. But as things shift, again, it's learning how to pivot. It's learning how to adjust course. It's learning how to adapt. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Darwin said it. He said, it's not the most intelligent or the strongest species that survives. It's the species that adapts the fastest to its current situation, right? To the current change. And so when you can learn how to do that in a way and give yourself grace in the process, right? Instead of beating yourself, giving yourself grace and saying, you know what, I'm going to do what's best for me, even though it might be taking a step back from business. I'm having a baby at 40. Okay. It might be taking a little step back from business.
A little bit of courage.
And right. And because I could have just looked at my main goal and go. But like I said to you, raising children, contributing members of society, kind, compassionate, thoughtful, outgoing kids, to me, that's just as important as building business. And so sometimes you have to do this delicate dance of where, what matters the most. And Zach, like you said, you're willing to do it for your relationship, right? And my relationship, since we've moved, we've gotten stronger. We know we can overcome anything together, good, bad. We might agree, we might disagree. That's okay. But I know that I've got somebody that I can go through life with that has my back no matter what. And when you've got that kind of, and it might not be in a partnership, it might be in a friendship, it might be in a support group, it might be in a mentorship program or a mastermind. But when you consciously surround yourself with people that want the best for you, not the best for them, but the best for you, then everything shifts, and it's easier to let go of that control.
Wow. That is absolutely it. And something just completely touched my soul when you were mentioning a couple of things. By, when you said by letting go of control of all these things, then you kind of gained some control to make some decisions. And so the word that popped in was responsibility. And so I that's kind of my last little point as I'll leave. By letting go of control, you gain responsibility, which is pretty awesome, because that just means when you think of it as responsibility, it's not you just being fully in control. You have this privilege and the ability, this responsibility to do something with this courage, or with this new light that you've adopted, or whatever it may be. And so I love that little shift there. And I think that it does serve us more, because when we realize, and going back again, one thing I'll just end with in my own story, I've been an entrepreneur since I was 13 years old. And so in my earlier stage growing up and into my life and my first businesses that I started, I always felt like I was the smartest person in the room in those earlier stages. And although it served me well in being able to build and scale and grow, right, in what I was doing in business, I lost it all. Like I lost it all in so many different ways. And I reached very humbling experiences in life. I lost a child. I lost finances. I lost, just the structure of life and everything that was happening around me. And I needed to hit those rock bottom moments in life and to truly be humble to realize that I had to let go of control. And now what serves me even more in business is I enjoy surrounding myself with people that are smarter than me. I don't want to be the smartest person in the room. I want to be the person that knows how to connect the smartest people together in the room and with a common goal in mind. So,
yeah, I love that, Robert. And the other thing that we all realize at some point is that you have to give up good to be great. You have to give up that piece, right? You can't sit in first class if you don't give up sitting in coach. And it goes the same for your life. If you want more in life, if you want a more fulfilling life, you've got to give up the life that you're living now, the friends, the circle, the habits, the bad habits. I remember there were so many weekends that I spent drinking wine with the girls on Friday and Saturday night and had a great life. And then I wanted to build bigger business. I wanted to do more. And so I started dumping into the wedding scene, and which meant that I had to be up at 5 a.m. on Saturday and Sunday. So that meant no wine on Friday night, no wine on Saturday night. I had to get up and start going. And so I missed out on this other piece of my life that I had to give up, these core friendships and all that kind of stuff, because I wanted to create more out of my life. And it's one of those things that when you're constantly choosing to up level, and by the way, not to say that I didn't love those girls and I don't love those girls. I do. And I want the best for them. But if I can be the pivotal thing that's like, wow, look at what she's doing with her life. Maybe that inspires me to do more, right? I'm never saying goodbye. I'm never closing the door. I'm just saying, hey, when you're ready to join me, I'll be here.
Yes, that's it.
Absolutely.
That's it. Everyone's at a different place in life. What are some closing thoughts you have, Zach?
No, she noted this, like for me going and being transparent, just basically letting everybody walk through the journey with me. Like Christina said, you're not saying goodbye to them, but if, my story on this can help one person, then I've done it, and, or it's even one person a month or whatnot, because I can go back to the ambulance that I didn't look at any of the drugs or anything, the ODs we ran all the time. It's like, okay, it was just an everyday thing. That's what, we got paid to do. But now that it's part of you and part of me, it's that, wait a minute, now it's different. Now, how can I help somebody?
And it's these things, right? And it's these things that develop our you brand, like who we are, and good or bad, it's these experiences and this journey that not only it transforms your life, but those around you. And Zach, I can assure you that you are changing other people's lives. Just even hearing one little bit of a message, there's people that are going to be resonating with going, you know what? I'm in that same boat that Zach, describes back in, November of last year. There's so many people that sit in that space. There's so many people that are successful as well that sit in that space that we, admire every day online, because most people just, again, they don't want to step out of the shadow. They don't want to be vulnerable. They don't want the light on them. But I believe that if you do this, even if it takes a while to kind of, build your purpose around that, the right people will come. And that's an interesting thing, right? Like to lose friends. I think both of you talked about that. I know, years ago when I made some decisions in my life and made changes, I lost a lot of friends, but I gained the right ones.
Are they really friends though, if they're willing to give up on you like that, right? Like
perfect way of putting it out there. So perfect way to close out our show. I do want to do a little plug as well for Tina couldn't be with us today. Again, Tina and Starr, but Tina has, she's always been a coach that has helped those become authors for the first time, right? Work with them hands-on through the entire process. And one of the new things that she's doing this year is she's developing an Aspiring Authors Academy, where it's more of a do-it-yourself approach, right? So people can finally kind of dabble in and start that venture into creating their own, getting their story and their brand and what's happening in their lives, actually getting that on paper so that I can inspire others through print and many other different ways. And so next week, we're going to be talking a lot about your story, like how your story matters, and everything we've talked about today, right? It's all kind of developed from that. Is your story is truly, when you tap into it and you embrace the good and the bad, and you get that message out there, you will attract the people, the right people, and you'll transform their lives as well, because there's so many people that are like waiting on you. As a matter of fact, we talk about this a lot, and I know Tina will talk about this a lot in regards to getting your story out there, that if we're not doing that to its fullest, if we're not sharing the good and the bad, then we're actually doing a disservice to the people in our audience, because there's people that are in a wounded state, in a state of pain, in a state of like unresolved loss, whatever it may be, and they're just waiting for someone like us to reach down and pull them out of that gutter. So Zach, thank you so much again for being on our show today. I know it's awesome, and we look forward to having you on some other things and doing other collaborations together. For those again that are just popping in or watch the replays later across social media, follow, like, and share us. Facebook.com, Uncensored Entrepreneurs. You can find us in many other platforms, and we're still migrating into some new things this year. So we're working on it, but we appreciate each and every one of you. Thanks again. We'll see you next week.